Hello, thank you for joining us for the board meeting tonight. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. When you join, you heard as an audience member that you are in listen-only mode. You cannot unmute yourself. However, now I am unable to unmute you, so you could speak for public comment. If you'd like to speak for public comment, please use the raise your hand function to indicate to me that you'd like to speak, and I will unmute you to do so. The raise your hand function is shown by a hand icon on your screen. Please know that your webcam will still remain off, so your comment will be audio only. And now I'll turn things over to President Coyne to begin the meeting.
Great, thank you. I'm calling to order the regular meeting of the Park Ridge Park District Board of Park Commissioners. Today is Thursday, January 21st, and it is 7:03 p.m. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Grau?
Here.
Commissioner Harrington?
Here.
Commissioner Leduc?
Here.
Commissioner Leach?
Here.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Here.
Commissioner Tunnell?
Here.
Commissioner Coyne?
Here. Here. Thank you. Would anyone like to amend, add, or delete an item to the current agenda? Hearing no, I will move on. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment on a non-agenda item? Are you seeing anything? Nope.
No, I was just giving it a little time.
Great. In that case, I have moved to approve the regular board meeting minutes of Thursday, December 17th, 2020. This action will be formally ratified in an actual board meeting with physical presence at a later date.
Second.
I have a second. Any comments? I guess not. I'm gathering not. Oh, Jennifer Leduc, Commissioner Leduc.
I just have one quick comment. There were a few grammar errors I found that I emailed to Mary Ann that she's going to change, but I figured it wasn't worth going through all of them with everybody because it was nothing, there was no substantive changes.
They were things I said, weren't they? You're just being nice.
Well, it was just in the notes.
Okay. All right, any other amendment, any other amendments or anything to the minutes? No? Then I will ask for a, do I need a vote on that? A roll call vote to approve the minutes? Yes? Okay. I don't know why I'm having a brain cramp. Please call the roll.
Sure. Commissioner Grau?
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington?
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc?
Yes.
Leach?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Coyne?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Report of park officials. The president has no report. Can turn it over to our attorney if he has a report.
Let's see here. There we go. So the only report I have concerns the nimbleness with which staff reacted to the ever-changing, constantly changing tier we're in. All indications are that the criteria is going to continue to be relaxed more and more. So we may find ourselves in phase 4 before we know it. That's the indication out of Springfield. They're going to focus their energy and efforts on the vaccination plan. One way that you may be able to move some of our people up in the queue is to reach out to the health department and suggest that you've got facilities and other things available to help them administer the vaccines. That's worked in other regions. I don't know if it's worked in Cook County, but across the state, reaching out to the health department has resulted in that happening. Otherwise, our advice is to our Park District clients, just be aggressive, set your programs, and let's go. The fluidity with which the governor has rolled out the retreat, if you will, to lower levels of mitigation, and the changes in them, they're never the same. It's never just go back to tier 2 or go back to tier 1. Even the metrics he's going to use are different. So make your plans, get your classes going. We'll do the best we can. People will opt in or out of your classes, but our advice now is go ahead, try and run your programs as best you can, and don't worry so much about the anything other than really capacity limits on the inside. I mean, nobody knows where the 50% came from, but we're grateful for it. Onward we go.
Dirk, is that 50%? That's that's tier 1, right?
No, that's now. That's
Tier 2?
you were given, yeah, you were given the 50% run
That's right.
for your fitness centers, and you
Yeah,
don't get that. You don't get 50% for your Zumba class or whatever, but you do get
Right.
it for your indoor fitness facilities and things.
Right.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dirk. Executive Director Mountcastle. your turn.
Yes, sure. Happy New Year, everybody, officially. We're happy, all of us, to be in 2021. As Dirk said, we've moved into tier 2, which of course is a new tier or redesigned category or redesigned metrics in a tier. And same thing, we're ready for moving quickly through the tiers. They announced some today, but not in our 10, our District 10. So we are prepared. Staff, again, has been great. I was out at the Oakton ice rink, outdoor rink yesterday, and it was being used, and it's a great spot if you haven't checked it out. The kids were out there, so it was great to see. So thanks to Terry and his staff. I know he might talk a little bit about that, but the ice rinks have been quite the challenge, the outdoor ice rinks, but they've been doing a great job trying to keep up with it. The vaccine, as Dirk said, we have, you know, our Human Resource Director, DeGangi, and Manager Myers, who's our safety coordinator, really were aggressive early on this last week. So we had a lot of meetings. Superintendent Armour and I were also involved. So we have talked to and reached out to everybody that we can in terms of telling them we would be a site. You know, we've registered with Cook County. Our employees, you know, one of our big questions was who is essential? Is that going to be all of our employees, or is it the, you know, the preschool and the daycare workers, which is what we think is going to be, you know, what it is. But it could expand. You know, we saw something today where it could be, you know, outdoor people working in outdoor recreation and maintenance. So, you know, everybody that we've talked to in the 207, I talked to Superintendent Wallace, and, you know, we're on their list. We're on, you know, several different Jewel, if they get it. We've worked with them for flu vaccines. We are registered, like I said, on Cook County, the Department of Aging. We've also reached out to be a site. So we're pretty confident that we've exhausted everything we can, but we keep up on it every day. And, you know, we have a lot of us have several different contacts to be doing that. So I'm proud of the staff for being on top of that and sending out communication to staff, because we were starting to get a lot of staff questions about that last week. Our vaccine will not at this point be mandatory. However, you know, we said at this point, because we don't know with this ever changing situation we're at. And, you know, from what we've heard, just it's probably going to be, they have, you know, if they have supply, then we'll be able to get on the list. So it just depends on the supply. That's why nobody has the answers to any of this, is, you know, from Harmony shaking her head. And I know we were going to try to connect as well. She's living this as well in her professional life, probably much so, more so than we are. But anyway, so that's been kind of the focus, as well as our annual reviews. All the staff is involved with the reviews. And again, we had the form that we do the reviews on. It was electronic, made electronic this year. It's made it a lot easier, and it's able, you know, we're all able to do it people that are remote and those that aren't. And I believe that that's all I have. If there's any questions on my report or marketing and public relations or human resources or anything I discussed, I'd be happy to answer this.
Quick comment.
If
and then
we
a
were
question.
to become a site, where would we do it?
Not sure, depending on where we are in terms of programming at the site. You know, if for instance, right now, well, as of Monday, the activity center wasn't doing, you know, programming. So that could be a site. I'm thinking O'Connor, you know, that we would use O'Connor for that because it's a good standalone facility and we have parking and it just lends itself to it. We right now don't have rentals. Now that could change as of, you know, yesterday because we can only have groups of 10. But I think this is a priority. And if we were able to do this for the community, you know, not just the staff, but for the community, I think it's something that, you know, would be a high, even though it's not our main mission, but this is, you know, something I think for the community that we would really try to do, to try to be a site.
Yeah, it's a bit of an all hands on deck, certainly right now. Have you reached out to Advocate?
Yes, indirectly, because they work with 207. And then April, do you remember if Jenny reached out to them directly too, or was that Resurrection?
I think
she
it
talked to
was
somebody at Advocate. I can double check that.
I think so. I know Resurrection and Luther in general. I can't recall Advocate, but I could scan through my emails really quick.
So those are the ones that would have like the alternative site certifications that allow them to do vaccines on a, you know, non-certified site. And there's all sorts of restrictions, but an O'Connor building would probably, with square footage and the way it's set up, would probably be a really good spot for it. We can have an offline conversation too.
Okay. If you have a different contact at Advocate, that would be great. I mean, I know we have a contact for sure through 207 because that's who they work with because they are already a vaccination site at Maine East.
Yeah.
So
I also wanted to share my appreciation. I can't believe how quickly the staff, you all, have learned how to flex during this time. I was really impressed with the communication that went out to the community so quickly as questions were starting to come in. You know, folks see an ability to have some recreation programming and questions start to come in, and you all were really, really great about coming up with a comprehensive communication to the public. So thank you.
yeah, that's April and her team and Margaret. And I was, you know, Amy Murin had people in the fitness center that night. So she had an email out, said come in for classes. So, you know, we all know Amy and she was so excited and, you know, people came in. So thank you.
All right. Any other questions for anybody from the executive director side? No? Then we move to finance, and I turn the floor over to Commissioner Harrington.
I just set a record here, President Coyne. All right, I will turn the floor over to Superintendent DeAngelis with our a summary of our written finance report, and then any questions anyone has.
Thank you and Happy New Year, everyone. So my written finance report begins on page 11 of the board packet. I'll be covering details with the monthly report by funds and the updated projection scenarios, but I'll be happy to answer any questions on the written report at this time, if anyone has any. Commissioner Grau?
I just had a comment on the IT portion. I noticed that your computer was replaced. I imagine you wore it out this last year. And I hope you're having regular maintenance on yourself, Sandra, so that you will make it through this next year. And we don't have to worry about replacing you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it had been 4 years old, my old one. So it was yeah, getting real laggy and
It
So
just
it's an
makes,
adjustment with the new machine, but
oh, I bet you're gonna be even more productive now.
I can hope. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Commissioner Harrington, should we move on to the report by funds?
That's great.
All righty. Margaret, could you make me able to share my screen? Thank you. Okay, so the monthly report by funds beginning on page 18 of your board packet. This first page shows, shrink it a little bit here, the total, this is our all funds combined. So I'm going to remind you all that these December reports remain preliminary, as we are going to continue to accrue expenses through February 17th, which will affect the ending fund balance. But as to date, the total net surplus across all funds of the preliminary numbers is better than budget by about 211,000, which you can see here. We had projected a net deficit, including driven by our capital spending. And we are better than the prior year by about 426,000. But this comparison is going to change as the final numbers are recorded. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the operating funds. So on the next page is the general fund, and you can see as it relates to revenue, we've been able to remain quite on track with revenues 99.9% in line with budget, while expense reductions in most areas, supplies, contractual, utilities, salaries and wages and benefits, have resulted in a greater net surplus than budgeted. We budgeted the general fund to have neither a surplus nor deficit, but we're currently running about $1 million surplus in the general fund. And again, I do expect this to change as we get in more expenses. But we're also in the general fund about 500,000 better than the prior year as it relates to our surplus. And again, the comparison is, these are final numbers, so this will change. Preliminary, correct. But the year-to-date are preliminary, but we're comparing to final year-to-date prior year, if that makes sense.
Yes.
All right, this next page is our recreation fund. So this surplus is offset by the performance in the recreation fund, where you can see that revenues are down 53% from the prior year, and they are only 43% of what we have budgeted. So we've also had reductions in expenses here, where they're about 55% of budgeted. The net effect is still a net deficit of about 1.1 million to date, which is 1.3 million less than budgeted and 1.6 million less than the prior year. Now the next page shows our capital fund, where you can see that the net deficit to date as of December 31st is about 97,000. It's 517,000 better than budgeted because of that slowdown in capital spending. And we see that effect when we combine all of the funds. And then when we look at the operating funds, which as a reminder is the combination of the general fund and the recreation fund, but then we back out the debt service. To date, with the preliminary numbers, we're showing almost a break even with a deficit of $13,000. We do expect this deficit to grow as we accrue remaining expenses and make other year-end adjustments. Major items yet to be recorded are up to $170,000 of ADA improvements, depending on how much Terry is able to identify from capital expenses that we can transfer from the capital fund to the special recreation fund. We do budget about $197,000 annually for ADA related expenses. So we're still working on determining what that dollar amount is going to be. We still have a few outstanding utility invoices. We've just reclassified about $13,000 of prepaid IT contractual hours to expense, and there's other operating related invoices from various areas that continue to come in. So at this point, I would like to ask if anyone has questions on the report by funds. Okay. Not, then we will move on to the updated financial projections. So again, because the December numbers are preliminary, we do expect them to change, but as noted in the written report, you know, each of the months as we've worked through these projections, I've been able to say that where we ended the year, or excuse me, where we ended the month was better than where it had been projected the prior month. Now, this is the first month that we actually were below where we had projected by about $100,000, and I would attribute that to you know, the new mitigations that took effect kind of mid to late November that really affected our programming in December. But as noted earlier in the meeting, these restrictions are relaxing, so we do expect, you know, as we've talked before, we've budgeted for through the spring programs that we would be back in phase 4. And, you know, so what we saw in December is that our performance was a little worse than where we had projected the prior month under the moderate scenario, but it was not as bad. If you recall, the stress case was showing that we were completely shut down December through February. So we ended up somewhere in between. And as we move back into phase 4, hopefully we will be back more on track with that moderate scenario or even with budget. So with that, I'd be asked if anyone has any questions on the projections.
The sound go off?
Hearing none, I will turn it back over to Commissioner Harrington to the next motion.
And scrolling online back up here to my agenda. Thank you. So much for following along in the meeting. All right, so we have approval of expenditures up next on the agenda. So I move to approve for payment vouchers in the total amount of $586,962.86. This action will be formally ratified at an actual board meeting with physical presence at a later date. May I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Commissioner Tunnell. I know these were sent to us. Any questions for Superintendent DeAngelis? Hearing and seeing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau,
Yes.
Commissioner Coyne.
Aye.
Now we have our recreation report. Commissioner Grau?
Okay, I will, for the benefit of anyone who might be in the audience, we talked about this a little bit before the meeting started. I saw a bunch of people at the pickleball court today, and I was thrilled. With shovel and passion, they played pickleball today, and I think that's great. And it's just an example of how our park district has allowed an outlet for people during this time, and it mirrors what our programming is doing in recreation. You guys are just been fabulous. So take it away, April.
Thank you. Well, luckily they're able and have already been able to move indoors. So that's the good news. My report begins on page 29. And of course, this report covers December, when many in-person programs came to a halt. However, we had many wonderful virtual events and classes running, transitioned as many as we could. And we also had visits with Santa, a house decorating contest, house Grinching for 91 houses, some kits for people to take at home, including a New Year's Eve kit in a box. And then we also continued with the allowable in-person activities at the fitness center, ice arena, and main park. As already mentioned, we're currently moving things back into the tier 2 operations, which definitely loosens restrictions up a bit and allows for some in-person programming for small groups. We do have, I know the outdoor ice rink was already mentioned. We do have some skating classes that we're offering there outdoors. And we're going to be starting youth basketball practice finally this weekend. We have hundreds of participants that have been patiently waiting for some action with basketball, so that's wonderful. And then we have Beyond the Bell that's starting in the schools next week. Registration is very low, so it's a little spotty and touch and go with some locations, but we definitely have some sites that are running. And if they're close to the minimum, we've notified the participants that we're just going to hold for 2 weeks and hopefully get, enough registrants for all locations. So staff is actively trying to recruit so that we can have it at each site. And that is in addition to the Camp Ridge program at Main Park that is running simultaneously for the kids who are all virtual. So everyone's still staying extremely busy. The fitness center remains busy. We have some days where there's 300 visits, which, according to some of our peers is, knocking it out of the park compared to what they were seeing. So that's great news. And we'll continue to see some of the offerings and restrictions lifted, it seems like, as Dirk mentioned, in probably the next week. So we keep moving along, and the staff is, painfully becoming experts at shifting things very quickly. So definitely kudos to them and Margaret for pulling everything together quickly and nicely with our thousands of last minute changes. When we get the FAQs the day after and they're different than what the phase restrictions say, it's, shifting everything again. So it's been interesting, but still lots of great things happening even when the in-person things were halted. But I'd be happy to answer any questions about the report or, anything that you've heard or seen in the community.
I actually have a question.
Sure.
I saw that we limited at the fitness center to one person shooting per hoop. So how is it that we can do youth basketball?
It's allowed per the youth sports guidelines to have small groups. And what's been happening at the open gym type atmospheres is that it's just become a free-for-all. So I think that's been identified, I think throughout the state, and that's something that's specifically noted in the guidelines for the open gym and at the fitness centers. So we were kind of pleased about that because we really struggled with that when we wanted to allow people to participate, and we tried so many different options to keep our hoops open. So we're, keeping our fingers crossed that people will follow the rules and we don't have to shut them down again, because it really got, it was very difficult for the staff to monitor and it wasn't working. So we're trying again after a hiatus.
The rule was very specific about the adult participation and the child participation.
No, it was really just for, the basketball usage in an open gym type situation or at a fitness center. But for youth sports, when it's organized and, there's 10 players and a coach or a staff member there, then it's, monitored and more controllable.
Yeah, coach telling them what to do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other questions?
I have a comment. We took part with the New Year's Eve in a box. I thought that was a pretty cool experience that you guys came up with. So you guys all year, creativity and just thinking outside the box. Like it was a fun experience, and the fireworks in the jar was pretty interesting. So whoever came up with that idea, I think that was probably the favorite memory. And then we also made a memory jar for our family for 2021 memories. So hopefully they're better than 2020's memories. So,
Great,
thank you for that stuff.
Yeah, as a commissioner, I've been very impressed with all the pivots you and the staff have taken. And as a parent, was so excited to see the emails about all the classes coming back. And as a puppy owner of a very naughty puppy, I'm also very happy to see that the dog classes are going to be starting soon too. So
Good luck.
Yeah, lots of thank yous and congratulations to you and your staff for all your hard work.
You don't have cat classes, right? Because that was what, I don't know if you saw the,
yeah,
that's my son's kid. I want to get a screenshot in there, so some screen time. Yeah, so I had New Year's Eve in a bottle, but I'm sure it's similar to what you guys did. Okay, back to recreation.
It was a box.
Okay.
Any other comments on recreation that are G-rated? Okay, I think I can hand this over to Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Commissioner Grau. And I will turn it over to Superintendent Wolf to discuss his report.
Thank you. One item I did want to update the board on that did not make my report is some discussion I've had with the city about the Marvin Parkway. As you may recall, we had some discussion previously about Marvin Parkway during a planning and zoning meeting with the city and the potential to use that space as a park or to develop it in some way after a upcoming project that they have. I've been in contact with the city and we've discussed that they are planning to complete construction of that work in fall of 2021, if all goes well, and that it is their anticipation that it would be after that project is fully completed that we could consider doing some sort of improvements out there, if that makes sense. So we've been in contact to discuss the timelines and just determine whether or not there was some urgency with being involved with the project, and they felt like that would not be in the best interest of the project overall. So we're going to continue the discussions. Project manager Meunier has already taken some pen to paper, for lack of a better term, to look at the space and see, what kind of things we could accomplish there. And I do anticipate having a further discussion, just touching in with the city staff in the next couple of weeks. And I expect that I'll have an update again before the next board meeting. So I just wanted to make you aware that that's still an ongoing conversation, and that there's no sense of urgency at this time, but the discussion will continue. So is there any questions on that particular item?
I was wondering approximately how large is the acreage or the space there?
I looked at it and I don't recall it per se, but I feel like it's somewhere in the 1/2 to 3/4 of an acre. It's not an extremely large area. It's more about either just providing an organized space, or even just having some open green space for people when they're done. That just is treated a little more like a park-like atmosphere versus a leftover piece of public works property, like I think it was before. So the primary goal that they're doing is they're putting a large underground detention vault in there right now. So it'll be pretty much a blank slate by the time they're done, because of the work that they're going to have to do. So I believe it's around 1/2 to 3/4 of an acre. I can follow up at our next meeting and let you know what that is.
Great, thanks. And pictures. We like pictures.
See what I got.
Yeah, regarding that property, I think the only bad part about it is very narrow with 2 streets on either side.
Yeah.
So I don't see any ball throwing or anything like that,
No, it's interesting is, and we learned this in the planning and zoning meeting as we were going through some, Google Earth shots and street views that they had there, is that there's already a soccer goal sitting out there, like a small one. So clearly the neighbors are using it as a park, but there's a lot of overgrowth and shrubbery there. So anything at all, I think, would be an improvement even over just what they had, and having nothing. So you're right, it's not a very large space, but
Well, yeah, I think it's large enough to be a park. I just don't like the layout of it.
Yeah, agreed. It's not ideal, but it could be beneficial. So.
And is that the only thing we're considering in that whole area? Or maybe we can't answer that, Gail.
At this time, that's one area that we're focusing on based on the discussion with the city.
Okay.
So additionally, that did not make my report. I did have a kickoff meeting with a community gardens group yesterday. We had a virtual meeting with some members of the community, and we have people from the garden club as well as Go Green, and it's a really great team. We've assigned some tasks and we're setting up a regular weekly meeting as we go forward, since we have such a tight time frame. But everyone's excited, and I think we're going to be able to hit our target of being plantable by May 15th this year. So I will continue to update on that. But it was actually really enjoyable meeting with a lot of dedication and interest from the group. So it went really well.
Oh, I got it to turn back.
Terry, did you get some good participation from the neighbors there? I know that we've worked with them closely, certainly over the past couple of years, to kind of improve the plantings around the water tank there. But have the neighbors shared any insights at the community meeting?
They have not, and this was a committee meeting to help with kind of designing and planning and how would the gardens be run and how would they work and function. We will be reaching out to the neighbors still to just inform them of what's going on and give them the opportunity to provide some input. So that'll be forthcoming.
Great.
All right. So moving more on to my report, I do want to take a minute to highlight the outdoor ice, as Gail made some mentions. We have had a lot of challenges, and we are happy to have these outdoor ice rinks. It's been an interesting year because we've had a rink over at the driving range at Oakton, which is within a fenced area, and 2 rinks that are out at South Park that do not have any fencing or any means to control access. the rink at Oakton is in near perfect condition and suitable for programming and classes, where the rinks at South Park are barely skatable at this point. So some of the things that, and I'm hoping that users of those are watching this meeting at some point on rebroadcast, but the reason that we have the red flags up is to protect the integrity of the ice and to protect the integrity of the liners so that we can provide this as an amenity to the public. But when people aren't following the rules and paying attention to those red flags, we've had unfortunate incidents where people's skates have gone through the thin ice early on, punctured the liner. We lost a lot of or most of the water. It required staff to further break apart the ice so that they could locate these tears and holes and rips to patch them so we could repair the ice. What this did is it stopped the freezing process and allowed the ice to not get as thick or evenly thick throughout. So what we have now is some areas of the ice where it might be 4 inches thick and other areas of the ice that might be 1 inch thick, which creates a very difficult condition. And while someone might look at it and believe that it's solid, and they might test an area that they believe and know to be solid, it doesn't mean the entire rink is. And every time they use that, it creates different issues. So we're getting them to a better place, but staff spent a lot of time today with the warm weather to help knock some things down, use the advantage of the melting, because a day with today's temperatures and the sun, full sunshine helps to kind of melt the top a little bit, even it out. But with the cold temperatures we're expecting over the next several days, we're really hoping to get some ice building on there. But it's been very evident to us the difference of being able to protect that space and not. So we'll continue to monitor, and we're working very diligently at making sure that this is an amenity that we can provide. And it would be our preference to have this open all the time, every day, for everybody. But if we put the red flag up, it's for good reason. It's because we're trying to get this to a spot that people can utilize it more. So, and if anybody has any questions or concerns about the ice rinks and the outdoor ice, you're welcome to give me a call at 847-692-3516, or you can email me at twolf@prparks.org or look me up on the website. I'd be happy to share any details about the importance of this at any time.
There's another cat tail. Hey, Terry, I want to interrupt real quick. Early on, we discussed some people have fencing around in other communities, and now we can see why. And I'm just wondering if we were hoping we were saving money by saving manpower by having these, and maybe we're not. Maybe we have to have that fence discussion again. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm still undetermined at this point, but your point is well taken and something that I've been discussing with the staff. We want to continue to see how the rest of the season goes, so that we can evaluate whether or not it makes sense to consider putting some fencing up at South Park. Perhaps we would want to move some more or all of the rinks to open driving range, or there could be other options out there. We also want to see how the grounds recover at Oakton. And Oakton does have one added benefit, that because of where it's located, it has a little bit of shading from some of the trees that grow right along Oakton Street there. So that's a benefit on sunny days like today. So we're evaluating, and we'll certainly make a recommendation at a point later on. But when we did first purchase these, there was discussion about putting construction fence around it. And at the time, that board was not interested in that look at South Park. So I'm certainly conscious that if it was a decision we were going to make, it would be something I would feel that should come to the board for discussion before moving forward with. So just from a cost savings perspective, we're certainly spending a lot of staff time out there repairing all these things, and there's a cost to the liners every single year. But we've had a couple of days now of ice skating available because of the weather that we've had this year, where it's a degree or two above freezing, a degree or two below freezing, and then we get a cold night, and it's been very warm, actually. In fact, I thought I heard it was like the 15th warmest winter on record. we wouldn't even be thinking about making ice rink right now if we didn't have the liners. So it has definitely provided an amenity that we wouldn't have been able to provide, but I don't know that it's necessarily saving us money at this point.
I think,
Dirk, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just
Hang
gonna,
on.
I was gonna add that the analysis is, let's see. I'm unmuted, right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so just to add to the factual analysis, much like signage that we were putting up in the early days of COVID that people reacted to in different ways, like destroying them, throwing them out, removing them, across the park system, fences that have been up, including permanent fences around, say, pickleball, people have taken them off their hinges. They've brought tools to take down chain link fences and other posts because they wanted to play so desperately. We've been repairing fences in other places, not just the temporary fences, I mean permanent fences. And people have brought their own snow shovels and ruined pickleball surfaces because they were so desperate to play, they shoveled the surface, ruining some of the paint and gouges and all the rest. You can't teach some people. So for what it's worth, in this weird COVID world where people are so desperate to be outside and play, the fences have been a source of more time for Terry's people and not less.
Commissioner Harrington, did you have something?
I thought probably due to Margaret's handiwork, but I thought there were some good communications that were put out, on social media and on our website around the rationale for the red flags and what's happening to our ranks when folks are using them. So maybe another try at the apple, and then, I know a commitment by many of us commissioners who are on Facebook to be able to share some messaging and talk to people about what's happening and the damage that's also occurring. When I had some conversations with neighbors, they seem to really understand how liners are being ripped because folks are using them too early. So maybe a little bit more public awareness, as you guys have been doing, but another round.
What are the thoughts that I had? Might some signage be more effective, either in lieu of the red flags or in addition to the red flags?
We already have signage in addition to, and we've worked with Margaret to make a few modifications along the way to help make them. We've added some infographics instead of just being verbal, and we've changed what the infographics look like, and we've been doing that. So yeah. And we have park ambassadors that stop out there. I was out there talking to patrons yesterday and trying to spread the good word, but
and as you know, signs, usually are for us being able to monitor afterwards and tell people it was on a sign or it was in writing, but a lot of people don't read signs, right, when they're going to use an activity. So the visual we thought was a better thing, but it is a shame, and because if you see the condition that Oakton's in, it's great, and so that will be a conversation of, do we move it all over there? Now, South Park, the conversation about that fence was, it's always it's just lends itself. It's just so nice out there. It's a big open park. It's always been, it's kind of a traditional thing as well, right? I think that's why none of us really wanted a fence, and, snow fence isn't really going to keep those people out. And, as Terry stated, the weather is just not what it used to be in winters. Now, next week, it's going to be ideal, hopefully. So they've been doing a great job, with managing that.
In terms of temporary fencing, does the park district own the fencing that was used at Centennial for the tree lot?
No, we do not. That actually was rented by the group that sold the trees there. When we initially looked at this, I had considered and looked at temporary fencing of that style, which I think would be a little more effective, but definitely has its own, has a look to it, and would, make the place seem a little bit more institutional if the whole area was surrounded with a construction fence. So, but when the time is right, and depending on what we determine at the end of the season, those will be things that we vet again. But
I was just wondering if that was already in our inventory or not.
No, we would have to either rent it or purchase it. And at the time, I was looking at the cost to just purchase it, because then we could use it for other, projects during the summer, because we often use that type of fencing for construction projects, and it might be a cost savings there that we could look at. But be something we consider.
You're not taking a survey, but my vote is to put all the rinks at Oakton, where you have a nice big parking lot, and then it's the Oakton Ice Center. You have indoor ice, you have outdoor ice. It's beautiful.
Noted. Thank you.
Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say if there was any other questions about anything else in my report, I'd be happy to answer those questions at this time. Otherwise, we're getting close to the 8 o'clock and it sounded like President Coyne wanted to be done by then. Just kidding.
Anybody else? Okay, so why don't we move on? I yield the floor to Commissioner Tunnell.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. And I really don't have anything to report at this time, but I'd just like to recognize Monday as being a day of service in honor of Martin Luther King Day, and I think that's important to recognize. And I'd like to thank everybody for their service on the board here. I know that there's a lot of stuff that we could be doing right now, but I appreciate the community service that you all have signed up for. I'm very honored to serve with you. So, and I do know that Executive Director Montcastle and Commissioner LeDuc and I do need to probably talk soon, just to have our second conversation around the diversity inclusion discussion. So look forward to that. And I'd like to yield the floor over to Commissioner LeDuc.
Hi. Okay. So I don't know if any of the rest of you watched the most recent city council meeting, but there was a presentation by the Sustainability Task Force, and on more than one item, there was actual mentions of, well, maybe this is something we could coordinate with the Park District. So after watching that, I actually reached out to Mayor Maloney today and asked, like, okay, well, if that's something you all are looking at, like, let's have a conversation and see if any of that's doable, because yeah, it was a really great presentation, and I was very inspired by the work that the Sustainability Task Force put into it. But then, yeah, when there was a couple times where I can't remember if it was a alderperson or a task force member, but I heard mention of, like, oh, and this is something that could be coordinated with the Park Board. I was like, or with the Park District. I was like, okay, I want to know more about what the thought pattern is there. So that's something I want to continue to have a conversation about and learn more about, and then bring back to you if there's anything substantial. That's it. And so, yeah, now we're on to communications and correspondence.
Thank you, Commissioner LeDuc and Commissioner Tunnell for both of these ongoing things that you're working on. And I really do appreciate the work that you're doing. And I like the idea of trying to work with that sustainability task force and trying to coordinate that. So yeah, I don't know that that's going to be an easy job, but I know that you're up to it. So communications correspondence. Commissioner.
I have one very quick thing. Sorry. I'm going to try to show this on my screen. You can see that, right? This was we received a thank you note from Ingrid Santee. The district purchased her one of these platters, a Park Ridge platter that specifically the ice rink is on there, and brought her flowers. So she's no longer with the district. So she wanted to thank the staff and the park board for that. So that's all.
That's great. Okay, so I guess I'll put this in new business or correspondence. I just want to be clear that I like to joke about trying to run the meeting fast, but I do not want to. I am not taking away anybody's time from their presentation. I want everybody to be heard. But that said, I have a minute and a half to wrap this up for a new meeting record. So, is there any new business?
Yes.
Of course.
Go ahead, Mr. Draw, I'll go after you.
I was kidding. I was just trying to throw a monkey wrench.
I know you were. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Well, I'm not sure if this is new business or how it even fits, but I don't know if everybody here is aware, but we are sometime later this spring, going to have an actual real live bike shop opening up in Village Green. Wheel and Sprocket Bike Shop. They've got locations currently in Evanston and Oak Park. And two of the other members from the previous bike task force that I met with, some of their people, and it was just a way exciting meeting that these people, they're going to operate the real deal, and they plan to be engaged in the community. Now, I'm not sure what impact that's going to have on the Park District, but Gail, I wouldn't be surprised if they were to reach out to you once they get their feet on the ground. The things that they talked about, just really, really, really exciting stuff. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that.
That's great. I'm sure we might reach out to them just to make sure we're on their mind for sponsorships and being involved with the bike, the bike sale, etc. So great.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and Commissioner Grau, we didn't even talk to them about the bike sale, but I don't know where they would be on that, but they articulated all kinds of different stuff that they were open to doing, and so it was just a great conversation. And in fact, they're lining up a meeting to talk to the mayor and just to get engaged in the community. So I think it's a good thing.
It's very exciting. Are they going to be on the Bussey side or on the Northwest Highway side?
In the middle, in that there's that courtyard there in the middle. They're going to be there.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's where that Charter Fitness used to be. That's where they're going.
Yeah, and they're a chain. I don't know if you said that, Jim. So
They've got home locations. Yeah.
Yeah. So they can help us. They're not a new business, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, that is just great, great, great news.
Hopefully they'll want to be a collaborative partner to the bike sale. I know when we purchased bikes through the bike sale, they all need a little tune-up or a little, little sprucing up here or there, and that could be great business for them.
And we've received donated bikes from different bike places because people bring them in and don't pick them up. So different groups have partnered with us for financially, for servicing bikes, for donating bikes. So yeah, that'll be awesome. I sent that email off to the Friends of the Parks right away when I saw it, Jim. When I saw it on Facebook, Melissa put it. So that is exciting. Yippee.
Yep.
Good work. You sowed the seed.
Yes, I felt like the bike task force, the gift that keeps on giving. It's just wonderful.
That's awesome.
And it really sounded from the conversation that the activity of the bike task force had something to do with them looking into Park Ridge.
Good.
Thank you for those comments. And I'm really excited about it too. Right down the street from me, and hopefully that will contribute to the increased biking around around Park Ridge, unmotorized biking, I might add. Any other new business? Hearing none, I will move to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners. Do I have a second?
I second.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau,
No.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
Commissioner Coyne.
Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you all, and see you.
Thank you guys very much.
Bye, guys. Stay safe.
Bye now.
Good night.
Thank you.